strategy, and lineup advice for your Week 12 main slate. I'm your host, Moose, and I forgot to mute Twitch. So let's go ahead and do that so we'll get rid of the echo. I'm Moose from Occupy Fantasy. I was watching a Twitch VOD earlier. I guess I forgot to unmute it. Alongside Brian Jester FF on Twitter, co-founder of OccupyFantasy.com. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's up, Moose? I'm good. Chugging along. We're almost the season's almost over.
You know what that means? It means playoffs, which is always a fun time to do.
Hell yeah.
DFS. And then a Pro Bowl, again, fun. And hopefully, as we were talking about in our staff chat today, hopefully we can get some XFL DFS going somehow.
Man, they better have that. I mean, you saw how they dropped the ball with the AAF, and people wanted it. People wanted DFS for it, and it can't be that hard. I guess the biggest thing is, providing the data to DraftKings and FanDuel.
Yeah, so they have Stats as their provider, and I don't
Oh,
think Stats has that. The other thing also to think about is like regulatory problems. So I know there are some states, I believe Pennsylvania is one, where they have to get a certain license for each sport that they offer. So they may not think it's worth the monetary to do that.
I guess so. I guess that's possible. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But damn, like if the XFL has that much money, if they want to be a legitimate league, like obviously gambling and DFS should be a big part of it, which is what the AAF promised, and then they just didn't do. So
Yeah. Who knew? Gambling and people actually liking it.
yeah, go figure.
Definitely. All right, so let me go ahead and get this tweeted out. If you guys are watching this replay on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe, like, and bell notification so you get notified of when we upload new videos. If you're watching this replay here on Twitch, definitely go ahead and hit that follow button. If you're here live, you can hit that follow button as well. You'll get notified of when we go live. And if you're here, say hello. Say hello in chat. Say what's up. I see we got Jake here in the chat. VIP member says, yo, what's up, guys? Always good to have you on here, Jake.
What's up, Jake?
So, Brian, we're going to be talking about Week 12 main slate, as we have here on the screen. The daily plug up on OccupyFantasy.com. Membership as low as $2 per week with the annual membership. As I scroll through down the stacks page, which is in front of the paywall, what's your overall opinion on this slate? Kind of like your first look. I know it's not your first look now, but what do you think?
It's trash. Slate, man, the slate sucks. I feel like it's gonna be super low scoring. I said that in our Wednesday podcast with Waleed.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really do think it's going to be low scoring. There's not a ton of value, no slam dunk value receivers, no obvious value running backs. I mean, people are considering playing Patrick Laird for some reason. That goes to show how shitty this slate is. None of the totals are that high. It's getting cold and kind of windy in some of these spots. A lot of the high total games are divisional matchups. Like I don't know, man. I don't feel great about it. Chris has a little more confidence in it than I do, which is why he recommended what he did for bankroll allocation in the plug. We'll see. But, as a high risk player, I should probably like these kind of weeks. If there's, not much consensus, bound to be some chaos, low scoring. So we'll see how it goes. We'll talk about it here and answer any questions anyone has. But on first glance, I'm not too thrilled about the slate.
Yeah, and speaking of chaos, I went ahead and threw the Occupy Chaos emote in the chat. People who are subscribers, like Miller Park Drunk, who's in the chat. If you're a subscriber, you can go ahead and use those emotes in the chat. Plus, as well as subscribing, you do get access to our Discord channel. So if you're a subscriber and you don't have access to the Discord channel, hit us up and we will make sure you have access to that.
Yeah, definitely. The Discord, a lot of good conversations in there. It continues the conversations from our Twitch streams, from our YouTube videos. And, a lot of times the members in our community can only chat during these times. So we open the Discord so people can continue those discussions throughout the week. I know in the various channels, we have NFL every week, but then with NBA and NHL every single day, we have some lively discussions there about people bouncing lineup ideas off of each other. So strongly suggest if you're interested and want that sense of community to join the Discord.
Yep, couldn't say it any better. So speaking of the slate being complete trash, and I know Chris may have to defend his thing here, but with it being such trash, do you think it's recommended to do 3 stacks this week?
Yeah, it depends on your on your playing style, what you're going to play. Specifically, Chris said if you don't feel comfortable with low risk this week, which I think a lot of people don't feel comfortable
I don't.
initially, and
Yeah,
then
I definitely don't.
yeah, I know, but then most people eventually talk themselves into it. Like, oh, I like this guy enough, and they'll start researching, and they'll find reasons to like the slate. But if you take Chris's advice and you don't like it, and you exclusively play high risk, then yeah, maybe you'll make a couple lineups and stack around these guys, stack around the guys that you really like. Um, there's actually a stack that's not listed here that I think is my favorite, and that's Seattle and Philadelphia, and we could talk about that too.
Yeah. So, as Chris points out in that very first sentence, Chris McCaffrey and Michael Thomas are playable in all formats every single week. I've never seen anything like it where they're just priced as high as possible, ownership out the roof, and they just completely ball out.
Yeah, until they're like 15K, until they get like Russell Westbrook with nobody else on the Thunder price.
Or like Luka
They're the team to
Doncic.
play.
I was playing a single game slate and I had him at captain at like 26, and I was like, God damn it, or 21-6, and I was like, fuck off.
Yeah, but he still probably paid it off.
Yeah, I still cashed. Yeah, so I guess the first, we'll lead into that first game of Carolina and New Orleans. What do you think about that? We have the paragraph from the plug here on screen. The Saints have the highest implied team total, which means we should prioritize Drew Brees, who also is the third highest quarterback in the Occupy model at the time of writing. What's your opinion on that game?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. So I'm actually looking at it now in the Occupy model, and that game total has gone from 48 down to 46, and you'll notice that. And can you pull up the quarterback model moves?
Yeah,
I want to show. This is another reason why I think the slate fucking sucks. So if you pull it up, I'll show you.
So I have it up here.
So if you sort by team total move.
Okay.
There's only 7 teams who have had on the main slate that have had a positive team total move since lines opened last Sunday. Oof. And only 2 have had significant moves. I think it's Denver and New Orleans, right? Yep. The most significant moves. Everyone else that's had a move is below that 1 point mark. And then look at all the negative team total moves. We got a 3 point, and all the negative team total moves are for those high total games generally.
Yeah, look at it. The Tampa Bay Atlanta game right now is 52. Team total is minus 1.75.
I mean, look at those first 4 teams. Those are the 3 stacks Chris named plus the stack I like.
Yeah.
So that's a little unnerving. That's another reason I would probably lower my allocation this week.
Although, for the record, you are not lower. You don't lower your allocation.
I know, in theory.
Yeah, in theory.
In a situation where I'm not tax incentivized, I would certainly be lowering my allocation.
Absolutely. And the other thing that take a look at the OF index change for quarterbacks. It's generally, if you take the slate, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players who have a positive OF index change on the main slate.
That's gross. That's so gross.
Yeah, and they're not even that significant, minus Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah. But as Miller Park Drunk in the chat says, never play Winston. However, Winston is one of the few quarterbacks with a positive OF index move through the week. So
man, it seems like you either get bad Jameis or good Jameis, and then you'll be the first couple plays in the game. And you're like, God damn it, we have bad Jameis this week.
We were watching last week, right? Literally the second pass play. You're like, oh, we got bad Jameis today.
Jake has a question. Says, what are your thoughts on Derrick Henry this week?
Yeah, great question, Jake. Henry has come up in my research a little bit. Like I was trying to build some lineups this morning and going back and forth on Henry, and it's a low total game, and it's kind of weird because the model likes a lot of the guys in that game. But Henry, mostly because of his lack of usage in the passing game, he's ranked really lowly, and we really don't see someone ranked that low, especially with as a home favorite. That's a spot you want to play Derrick Henry. Generally, I think a lot of people like Henry based on how much Jacksonville got ran all over by Indy last week. I think Henry is obviously more playable on FanDuel, where it's touchdown heavy and half point PPR. But on DraftKings, I'm not a big fan, and I learned my lesson last week trying to play a bunch of Brian Hill in the model. Didn't like him. I'm gonna trust the model this week and not play any Derrick Henry on DraftKings, and we'll see how that goes for me.
Yep, always trust the model. When in doubt, trust the model.
And he is crazy expensive on FanDuel. That's another. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the other issue.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next stack, Tampa Bay at Atlanta. That's the only game with a total over 50, and the
And
total's
that's
gone.
also gone down. It
Yeah,
opened
and
at
that's gone
54.
down as well. Do you have any opinions on this game?
Yeah, quite a few opinions. So Matt Ryan, we know Tampa Bay likes to blitz, leaves a lot of receivers one-on-one matchups. Julio is one of our buy low underperforming receivers. Great spot for him. Ryan is at the top of the model, and as we've known this year, top of the model quarterbacks have been crushing. We go
Yeah.
back to last week. Drew Brees threw 3 touchdowns. 2 weeks ago, Daniel Jones threw 4 touchdowns. The model's done a great job of pinpointing the top quarterbacks. And so you got like Matt Ryan this week. I think Chris wrote about him later as far as being a top low risk play. He's a great high risk play as well. But what's interesting to me, Moose, it's really this has to be a rare scenario with Brian Hill and Miles Sanders too from the Philly game, where we had 2 guys last week who we thought were underpriced. We suggested to jam them in, get as much of those guys as possible.
Mm-hmm.
They wildly disappointed. Their prices have increased to a normal amount this week, and now they're still projected to be highly owned. So I don't know what to do with that. That's really crazy to me.
I think that's just more so looking here, Brian Hill projected about 10 to 12% depending on the site. Let me see if I can. Miles Sanders higher in the model, about between 10 and 25%.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a pretty big difference. I think the thing is people are sharp. They see that one game doesn't necessarily mean a lot. However, this is still significantly lower than their 30, 45% projected ownership and actual ownership that we had last week. But what scares me on Brian Hill, he wasn't near the top of the model last week. He's still not in the top of the model this week. His OF index has actually gone down a lot, minus 6.5 points on DraftKings, minus 4 OF index points on FanDuel, just slowly going down. I don't like it.
Brian Hill's super low, yeah. I mean, but the thing about it is,
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's the second highest sub 5K running back on DraftKings. Yeah, Miles Sanders looks like the guy if you're going to use one of those two.
Yeah, I would
The
absolutely
thing
use
is,
Miles Sanders over him.
yeah, I agree. So Jordan Howard likely won't be cleared. He still has the stinger. And a lot of people will point to Miles Sanders' matchup last week with New England, but he just wasn't getting the touches. He was on the field forever. Like he was
Yeah.
like 60 some snaps and ran a ton of pass routes. Chris pointed out, I don't know if he pointed out in the plug, but at least pointed out to me was that, Sanders ran, I think, the third most pass routes of any running back last week. The dude's great in the passing game. And, as you and I were watching the games last week, we're like, God damn, throwing the ball. He's open, throwing the ball. So Sanders ranks higher, plays better in the passing game, greater share of the touches, I feel like. So yeah, I agree with you that I think Sanders is preferred play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just still kind of interested. I guess Hill's ownership has gone down since Wednesday when we first saw it.
Yeah, it has, and I think people have smartened up. It's tough for them to jam in 2 low priced running backs and feel comfortable about it.
That's true.
Yeah. And then the last game that Chris wrote up about was the Dallas New England game, which when I first load up the model this week, I said, "Oh, this is a weird slate, weird game." Normally, New England players would be ahead of Dallas players, but it was quite the opposite. What's your opinion on this one?
Yeah, the DraftKings algorithm is specifically like super priced down the Dallas players because of the matchup with New England's defense.
Yeah.
We've said it a few times on this show about first half defense not necessarily barely correlating with second half performance on defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly related to who you play on your schedule. And, Dak has thrown for about 1 million yards in the last 2 games, and you get discounts on literally all of his receivers. Both, it's kind of crazy, but both Gallup and Cooper, their air yards over the last couple of weeks have been mind blowing. If you look at the last 3 weeks, in fact, Amari Cooper, 29 targets, 421 air yards. Michael Gallup, also 29 targets, almost the same, 410 air yards. So you get guys with huge high value targets, and you get a price discount.
Yeah.
And on the New England side, we actually get some value too because Mohamed Sanu report today he's likely not playing with an ankle. Philip Dorsett still hasn't been cleared from his concussion. So we get N'Keal Harry and then Julian Edelman in a target boost spot. So I really like where Chris' head is here.
Yeah. Looking here, Julian Edelman and Amari Cooper have the same DraftKings OF index. That's
Well, there you
actually
go.
pretty awesome. Yeah. I expect Julian Edelman to really blow up this game and get a lot of targets. I think
Me
more,
too.
probably like 13 targets, 11 to 13 targets, a little bit more than his projected 9.5 that we have here in the model.
I think so too, honestly. And Jake asked in the chat, is the weather in that game a factor? We'll have to watch a lot of these weather reports tomorrow because there's a few games on that line, Moose, of wind. So just looking here at some quick forecasts: Dolphins and Browns, 14-mile-an-hour winds, 36 degrees. That's pretty cold. There's quite a few 12-mile-an-hour games earlier than that. Redskins, Lions over that mark, 16 miles per hour. Seahawks and Eagles, 14. Cowboys and Pats. It looks like it's just going to be light rain. In fact, this looks like one of the better games on the slate.
Yeah.
Wind under 10 miles an hour. Now, it was worse early in the week, but with temperatures in the 50s and just rain, I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, I actually went to the Occupy model quarterback tab, sorted by the win tab. And the fact that there's more games with double-digit wind than less, again, shows this.
The slate sucks, dude.
I know. I have a Millie ticket, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I should do it this week. And the more I look into it, I was like, I am nowhere near doing it this week.
Yeah, but should you do it though? Like, as I said to Waleed on the podcast, I said this should be one of the lower scoring millionaire maker weeks.
Okay.
However, the last time I said that, it broke a record with like 300 points. So I'm going back to the well here. I do think it's gonna be lower scoring, and given our lineup construction research that we've done, I think maybe the edge is this week, even though how gross the slate looks.
Yeah. You know what? Just to figure it out, let's do a poll. I'm gonna do a poll,
We
and
can
the
do a
question
poll for sure.
is going to be: should I use my Millie Maker ticket on this week?
Yeah. If anyone says no, buzzkill for sure. Lucas Moose in the chat said he was Mr. Patrick Laird before Patrick Laird was a thing. So does that mean Lucas played the Patrick Laird role in high school as a receiver, as a running back, or he was all over him in preseason DFS, which I think is more likely.
I think that's a little bit more likely. A little bit more likely. All right. So I have put the poll up there for 3 minutes. Go ahead and vote. I see we have Jeffinator in here. Looks like he says what's your opinion on Patrick Laird? I'm starting him over Montgomery. Playing full PPR.
Yeah, I think Chris said it perfectly. I think that's too cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laird ended up with 6 catches last week, which was, pretty crazy. I mean, Montgomery, you can realistically project for 20 touches.
Mm-hmm.
Laird, you can maybe project for 8. So I think it's pretty simple to me to go Montgomery.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. All right. So as you said, no one has said no yet, which is great. That would be a pretty big buzzkill. Yeah. So if that's the case, so if you're doing the 1 Millie Maker ticket, I actually think that last game we just talked about, the Dallas New England game, is the game that I would stack.
It is?
Yeah, I think that's the stack I'm going to go with.
That's fair. So here's my question to you, Moose. And, maybe this doesn't apply to most folks who, if they take our recommendations and are playing 100-player leagues, 118, 237 player contests on DraftKings, instead of GPPs, those folks are likely, stacking 3 guys from the same game, 2 from one side, 1 from the other.
Yep.
However, if you do have a ticket, or if you're playing single entry or 3 max, or using DFS Magic, and you're making some cheap 20 max or 150 max, do you think, as we talk about in the $1 Million Mission on Tuesday nights here on Twitch, that we fully 3x2 stack in those large field GPPs, or because the slate is so gross, we drop it down to 2x1 or even 3x1?
So I think it all depends on what game you stack. The Dallas New England game, if you go Dak, Zeke, Cooper, Edelman, maybe drop down to N'Keal Harry for that last spot, you're wrapping up basically all the opportunities in that game. Whereas, you have the Carolina game. There may be some other factors that go in there. But I think it all depends on the game that you're stacking. This week, there's probably only 1 or 2 games that you could do the full game stack on DraftKings. So I would say no. But
yeah, I'm leaning no too.
Yeah.
But also, because there's 2 sides of the argument here.
Yeah.
Like, if a game goes off, it's likely going to be one of the only games to go off.
Yep.
And that really boost your chances of winning. So I don't know. I'm on both sides here, but I think when we did some research with Jack, the creator of DFS Magic, we found that when the field scored lower, you had a better chance of winning
Yeah,
if you used the full stacking. So I think we need to stick with that.
and again, because like you said, if it's all low scoring, all shitty games, all it takes is if one game that you have goes off, your player core around it, uh, hopefully the model #trust the model is doing its
Yeah,
thing, then everything there is just going to boost you up.
right. Exactly. So yeah, I think I kind of answered my own question talking with you. So yeah, let's stick with similar strategies this week. Um, the lower the field scoring, the better it is for high risk. So
Yeah, exactly. And it was exactly 100% of the votes on yes. So I will be using my Millie Maker ticket tomorrow, I guess.
you have to.
Yeah. Again, guys, so we'll be here for another 30 minutes or so, maybe. Go ahead and ask questions here if you want to ask questions about specific players. If you're new around here, we'll definitely go ahead and answer your question. High level questions, like we were just talking about. We're more than happy to go ahead and answer that. Let's see here. Did you have a windstorm?
Sorry, I was clicking my mouse a lot.
No, it sounded like a windstorm just came through with your mic.
Oh, I don't know what that was.
Yeah, true. All right, so the other thing that we'd like to talk about here is we'll go back to the quarterback tab. We kind of harped on it, talked about it a little bit, but some of the teams with the big team total moves, that's something that's actually incredible. There's multiple games or multiple teams with over 2 points moving since opening.
It's gross, man. It's really gross. Like, yeah, we can't give away too much on the stream here, but I feel like a lot of the high ownership, especially at receiver, are in those games, right? Like, especially Tampa Bay, Atlanta.
Well, I
We don't
mean,
want to get. Well, here's the thing. Like, ownership's going to change tomorrow morning too. Our
yeah,
projected ownership. So I think we can show it really quickly. You
yeah,
just sort by.
yeah. So if we do here, and we can just sort by the team, we'll do Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Yeah, you have a lot of high owned guys there.
God, yeah. So 3 guys projected 10% or higher. Julio up to 32% on FanDuel.
Yeah.
What about New Orleans, Carolina?
So for New Orleans, actually, let's just sort by DraftKings ownership here.
Okay.
Yeah. And look, Atlanta, Cleveland, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, New England, Tampa Bay.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, if you stack Philly and Seattle and those games go under the total and those guys as a result likely disappoint, you have a true springboard to the top of leaderboards,
So
assuming
so then
all
let me
that
ask you
works.
this then. So we have a team total decrease. We have, excuse me, not the highest OF index. I mean, still decently high. Do you really think all those other factors combined, Julio Jones busts more than 32% of the time? Like, do you think that ownership is worth it?
You gotta think about it here, right? In high risk contests, he needs, I mean, bare minimum, he needs 25 points on DraftKings. FanDuel, he'll need pretty close to that, 24, 22, 21, 24 points at least. But if you're paying that much of that ownership, you want a lot more. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I don't think there's a 30% chance of him exploding for 30 points. Maybe there is. I don't know. It just seems really high to me. As part of a game stack, you obviously get the correlation that kind of makes up for it. But as a standalone play, again, it doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, there's no way I'm using him as an island play.
I don't think you can. I know he's at the cutoff and slightly on our underperforming receiver list, but at that ownership, it's pretty wild to me.
I mean, I would bump down if you wanted to play someone from that game, you bump down to Calvin Ridley. Not only do you save money and a shit ton of ownership, you only lose just a couple of targets, and Julio Jones' OF index has changed negatively throughout the week, whereas Calvin Ridley's has increased throughout the week.
It's pretty interesting.
Very interesting. All right.
Good point, Moose. I mean, Julio Jones is gonna be the only player to go off in that game now.
Yeah, he is
3 touchdowns.
absolutely crushing it. As Jake points out, Julio's getting so much hype. I think his ownership even goes up some tomorrow. I think so too.
I mean, we saw Michael Thomas 44% in large field GPPs 2 weeks ago. So I don't see why Julio won't reach that mark either,
Yeah. Who knows? It's
which is
crazy.
nuts.
Yeah.
Plus, like Julio, um, Josh Hermsmeyer, who creates the air yards by low model,
Mm-hmm.
he's been very public about Julio being on the list this week. So I think that is only going to drive up his ownership even more.
Jeez. Yeah, as Chris points out, if you're worried about Julio versus Ridley, just play Ryan. You get exposure that way no matter what.
Yeah, especially in low risk contests, 100%.
Yeah, and again, we talked about it. Here back on the quarterback model, he is the highest projected owned quarterback on both sites, 20% on both sites. The third
That whole
highest.
game, man. God. Hold on. I'm going to look at one thing if I can find something. So, Moose, go ahead and talk about what you're talking about while I check.
So Jake has a question. Says if Julio is 40% owned, are you totally fading him?
Yeah. Total fade, I'll probably be stacking that game. I still haven't 100% decided yet. But one second. I'm just looking at one thing.
And once you get done with that, I'm gonna do a very bad math thing for you, just to say why it may be worthy to fade that Atlanta Tampa Bay game.
Go for it. You say that then while I'm looking something up.
Okay. So we have the total in that Atlanta game, 52. That basically means, high level speaking, 50% of the time he goes over that, 50% of the time he goes under that. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would even say that it's more than 50% likely to go under based on the line movement in that game.
Okay. But for the sake of argument, 50%.
Sure, 50-50, yeah.
Same thing. All right. Same thing with that Seattle game. It's at 47.5. So there's a 50-50 chance of that game, or 25-75 of the Atlanta game going under and the Seattle game going over. I know that is not at all how math works. It's not correlated for the sake of argument. So you're saying
Right.
25% chance that one game is higher scoring than the other, all super high level. If you're playing people who are 20, 30, 40% from the game on the other side, that's not a good look, I think. I think that could be a way why you could fade that particular game stack
Yeah.
and go towards Seattle Philly.
Yeah, we need that gift of that lady like calculating shit.
Yeah.
Um yeah, no, I agree. Obviously I agree with you. I definitely, I don't know if the math's 100% right, but the sentiment is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think the ownership of that game should be that exponentially higher than the Seattle Philly game.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I can't fucking find it. But it feels to me like Atlanta has played slower over the last two games, as far as pace of play goes, as far as conservative play calling. I have nothing to back that up, just based on the hashtag eye test grinding film.
All right. Well,
if anyone can find that, let me know.
Let me see. Let me take a look at one thing here. If you want to ramble off on something real quick on why you like that, maybe why you like the Seattle game.
Yeah, I can do that. So, I think the tight end position is fucking terrible this week. And I'm cursing a lot more this week because it just shows how much I hate this slate. But I think Ertz is the clear top tight end. I think our motto agrees with us there. And so you like him there. Aguilar, who Alshon Jeffrey's likely going to return, and Aguilar should play. And most people are not going to play Aguilar after, just his continuous drops. But even in games where him and Ertz and Jeffrey have all been active, which has been a decent amount of games. Yeah, I mean, in the games they've been active, Aguilar actually is nearly doubled Jeffrey's air yards. It's been kind of crazy. So, yeah, Aguilar's on our underperforming receiver list. It takes a bump down with Jeffrey returning. However, in a game, if it does shoot out, I really like Aguilar here. I like Ertz. Lockett should be healthy. Metcalf is always in play with him leading the league in end zone targets. So I'm a big fan of that game.
Yeah, and so I was able to find it. Let's see if I can do actual math now. So looks like they spent, in terms of number of plays, last week was 61 at Carolina. Before it was 70, 71, 53, 63, 68. And in time of possession, looks like they actually have been playing at a little bit of a slower pace the last couple of weeks.
It
But
definitely feels that way. And like I said, I don't have any splits to back that up. It just feels like they know their team is trash, and so they're trying to shorten the game. Um, and also their defense has just flipped a switch.
yeah.
So if we get bad Jameis versus, which is apparently the best defense of all time now, the game could easily be one-sided. So I'm kind of scared of stacking these games because what really derails these games is when one team doesn't perform to expectations,
Yeah.
right? You get the boom game stack when both teams are battling back and forth. Think the Tampa Bay Seattle game a couple weeks ago.
Hmm.
But when you get these 31-10, 31-17 games, that's when your game stacks can miss.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. That's when you see a lot of these like three from one team stacks win the Millie Maker and all that stuff,
Right,
or the two by
right,
one
right.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think last week was 2-1 on FanDuel, 3-1 on DraftKings with the Buffalo Miami game, which of course no one expected.
Yeah,
Um, so there you go.
absolutely. Yeah, guys. So as I said before, definitely go ahead and ask questions. We'll be here for maybe about another 10 minutes or so, breaking down this slate. If there's something you want us to talk about, go ahead and ask that as well. If there's something you want to see, definitely go ahead and take a look.
Yeah, so I had the wrong weeks up here. So weeks 4 through 9 is when both Jeffrey and Aguilar have been active and actually playing. Week 2, Jeffrey started and then missed like 90% of the game. But if you look, my initial numbers were wrong, but the sentiment stands. Aguilar 374 air yards in those 6 games. Jeffrey just a 9 yards average depth of target. Aguilar 14, so uh, much deeper targets for Aguilar in a game that shoots out is where I'd want him. So I like both guys. Jeffrey was on our underperforming receiver list before he got hurt. So both those guys plus Ertz's market share. Big fan of that side of that game.
Yeah, I dig that. Um, Jake says, "Talk me off going all in on Lindsay."
Jesus. Yeah. Let's see here. Let's look at Lindsay's touches the last 2 weeks. So he was expected to get the bell cow role. It was a report early on Sunday last week. That came to fruition. He had 18 touches compared to Royce Freeman's 9. And if you look at the snaps, backs that up as well. The first time since week 3 that Lindsay outsnapped Freeman. So I get that. They're playing Buffalo. I know Buffalo's not as great against the run.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where's Lindsay ranking the model? Let's take a look.
Yeah, so let's take a look. He's actually not that high, ranked like what, probably 15th, 20th or something like that.
Yeah, it's funny because I keep looking and I was like, all right, how's this guy ranked this week? And he's like 20th or 15th or whatever. And now I'm at this point, like, who the fuck is ranked above these people?
Yeah. um,
Like every player that I'm thinking about is ranked 20th.
yeah, and so at 5,200, you can play instead of going all in. You can go just slightly in, just a tip, just a tip on Philip Lindsay, and you can spread it across other people around his salary cap. You can do Brian Hill at 49, Miles Sanders $200 cheaper at 5, or if you wanted to pay up, you could go. Let's see who's someone who's not as high. Someone like James White, who's a couple spots up in the model.
Could go Patrick Laird or David Montgomery, who's been hot topics in these chats.
Absolutely, absolutely. And his ownership is about 4.5% on both sites. Yeah, all the other players I named are somewhat around that.
Yeah, this slate sucks. God damn it.
All right, question for you:
All right, let's hear it.
Who is going to be the slate breaker tomorrow?
At any position?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's going to be Odell, unfortunately.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of been these high-owned, underperforming receivers that have been breaking slates.
Yeah.
So let me see if there's anyone else I think of. If Deontay Johnson was out, I was definitely going to say Johnny Holton.
Johnny
For
Holden
real.
would be nice. Yeah. Um,
You know what a sneaky stack is actually?
hmm.
Is that Jacksonville Tennessee game.
I was actually like literally just about to say that.
Yeah, what were your thoughts on, or why were you about to say that?
So you have Tannehill ranked second in the model. He's creeping up. His OF index has changed, the highest so far. less than 1% projected on both sites. That's a great cheap start at quarterback. Um, you can fit in some stud wide receivers with that. And then let's take a look actually in the wide receiver tab and look at that.
Well, they have two guys from this game who are on the underperforming receiver
Yep.
list. A.J. Brown and DJ Chark. Leonard Fournette, Derrick Henry should get lots of touches. Henry, depending on the game script.
Mm-hmm.
But lots of options that the model likes. And if you look at some of the factors that you and I look at to determine stacks, Jacksonville, Tennessee, the model is all over this game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of got my attention.
And so what do we like to say? Again, high level, super high level, we talk about here. Don't get cute at running back. Don't overpay at wide receiver. Look at the prices on some of these wide receivers from this game. 3,900, 6,400, 4,700, 46, 41, 43. Ownership, 5, 4, 3, 3, a half. Whereas, you can get these decently high in the model guys, cheaper price, low ownership. That's perfect setup for a wide receiver. You can pair it up with some more expensive running backs. Nice little defense to fit it in there. You're looking pretty good.
Yeah, but is it psychotic to stack a game with 41.5 point total?
Didn't somebody stack like the Buffalo?
I mean, someone stacked Buffalo Miami last week. It
Yeah.
was like 43 points. So
Again, it goes back to I know that Vegas sets these lines and they do these things here and there, but it's still just a guess for everybody. If our underlying metrics think that this is going to be a high scoring game, people are going to have a high chance of fantasy success. Maybe we think the total shouldn't be 41.5. Maybe it should be higher.
yeah, maybe we should, instead of playing DFS, bet the over in this game tomorrow.
Oh God.
No.
Yeah, sure. You know what? Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've made one bet all year.
I will say I have not made one bet all year, and doing okay, I guess. If that's
Do you know what that bet? You know what that one bet was? Fucking, it's so bad.
What was it?
You know what? It was Ronald Jones over 36 yards or whatever
And
on that Thursday night game.
Yeah, he
and
had like 6.
he did not hit 36 yards. So
I remember. I will say my biggest bet of the season so far was that preseason game when they played on half a field or whatever the fuck it was, and I cashed on the last second. I cashed it over on the last second field goal.
Yeah,
that was really awesome.
Yeah, that game. What a shit show that game was. That game should have flew. I mean, the field was freaking 80 yards. It should have flew over the total.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened. All right, yeah. So last couple of minutes here. If anyone has any last lingering questions, get them in before we head out. If you're a subscriber and you missed it, ask your question. You can go ahead and hop in Discord. Help us out.
What do you think, Moose? Just stacking Jacksonville, Tennessee, stacking Philly, Seattle, stacking Dallas, New England instead of those two popular games.
I say why not, right?
Well, there's quite a few dollars. There are reasons why not.
I mean, all right. So I mean, I understand that, but hashtag trust the model. If our underlying metrics are saying to do this, and maybe these plays aren't worth the ownership, then yeah, I could see us doing that, or see you doing that.
Yeah, thanks. Oh man, yeah. If you look at just like combined OF index of quarterback, running back, receiver, that Jacksonville Tennessee game is number 2 in our model, which is wild to me.
Yeah, and as someone is saying in the chat, it is Ryan Fitzpatrick's birthday tomorrow. Birthday narrative.
Jeez.
So he's turning 37 tomorrow.
67.
Good God.
Jake also says, what about Miami? Yeah, Cleveland, Miami is another one that you could very easily. You go Odell, Kareem, and Baker, and then you run it back with, God forbid, Patrick Laird, like Devontae Parker. Yeah.
Dude, if Miami,
watch the win in that game too.
If Miami is in back-to-back Millie Makers, that'd be the greatest tank show of all time.
Dude, yeah, I know.
It's like we're tanking, but we're winning people millions in DFS.
Yeah, they're doing it for the people.
Absolutely. So, any last words before you take us out of here, Brian?
I don't think so. Let's just get creative tomorrow in high risk contests. I don't think you need to be restricted and rigid as far as the top stacks go. Not
But
to disparage what Chris has said in the plug. He makes very good points, and they're the most likely to go off. I still think probably lower your allocation. We'll see. I'm curious to see how ownership changes tomorrow morning. I'm curious to see betting markets in the morning
mhm.
to see if weather impacts anything. But yeah, really interesting slate. So be sure to read the plug if you haven't already. Check out the model as the changes tomorrow morning. And um, I think this week is a good week to really hone in on your contest selection skills. Make sure you find contests. I mean, you have all week to do this. Make sure you find contests with inexperienced players. Make sure you find contests with overlay tomorrow morning. Make sure you target the satellites that you've been targeting. So that would be my focus this week.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. Let me ask you this last question before we get out of here. Do you think it's possible to get too cute tomorrow?
I mean, I think there's always a way to get too cute. Um, but yeah, as long as you're not being crazy, like as long as you're following the guidelines that we suggest, and
Yeah.
talk about some of the stacks we talked about here or on the Wednesday podcast, I don't think it's too crazy. Where playing 100% Patrick Laird, maybe that's too cute.
True. All
He's gonna
right.
go off for 20 points tomorrow, by the way.
Hey, he's going for 6.
Yeah.
So, all right. With that being said, I'm your host Moose, alongside Brian. You can follow me on Twitter at CFB_Moose. You can follow Brian at BrianJesterFF. You can follow Occupy Fantasy at Occupy Fantasy on Twitter. Check out the website occupyfantasy.com. It's where you can get access to the full daily plug and Occupy model updates in real time. Membership as low as $2 per week with the annual subscription. That being said, let's have a good one, guys, and we'll see you at the Periscope tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Subscribe, follow, subscribe, follow, subscribe. Thank you.
Peace.